Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? This one's going to challenge some assumptions about sex and evolution.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
We're looking at a chapter from the book Bitch on the female of the species.
Lots to unpack there.
Seriously, get this. It all starts with Charles Darwin.
Darwin, like the evolution guy.
The one and only. But he wasn't just about finches. He had this, obsession with barnacles.
Barnacles.
I know, right? Seems random.
So what's the deal with Darwin and barnacles?
Well, they actually played a big role in shaping his ideas about sex and evolution.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What did you find?
First off, barnacle anatomy. Brace yourselves, they have proportionally the longest penises in the entire animal kingdom.
Whoa, seriously?
It's true. They need them to reach mates because they're stuck to rocks.
Makes sense, I guess.
But that's not all. Darwin discovered that most barnacles are hermaphrodites.
Hermaphrodites, so like both male and female.
Exactly. They can fertilize others and be fertilized. And if there's no one around, they can even self-fertilize. Talk about resourcefulness.
So right away, we're seeing that sex is more complicated than just male and female.
Definitely. And it gets even weirder. Darwin also found these barnacles with tiny complemental males attached to the female.
Tiny males? Like, what's the point of that?
Well, Darwin saw them as a kind of missing link in the evolution of separate sexes, like a stepping stone from hermaphroditism to distinct males and females. Shows how things can change gradually, lots of variation along the way.
That's fascinating. So barnacles are blowing up our simple ideas about sex.
Big time. And this leads us to Dr. Joan Roughgarden and her book, Evolution's Rainbow.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that book. It's all about the diversity of sex and gender, right?
Exactly. Roughgarden argues that Darwin, while groundbreaking, was still too focused on a binary view of male and female.
Right.
Evolution's Rainbow is packed with examples of species that totally defy easy categorization.
Like what?
Oh, you've got homosexual bighorn sheep, intersex bears, even fish that can change sex multiple times a day.
Multiple times a day. Come on, that can't be true.
It's true. We'll get into that next.
Okay, now I'm really curious about those fish.
Let's dive in.
So one example is this tiny fish called the chalk bass. They're found in the Caribbean.
The chalk bass, okay.
Yeah, and they live in pairs, like monogamous pairs, but they don't have fixed sexes.
Wait, so they switch back and forth?
Yeah, they can switch back and forth multiple times a day.
No way. What's the point of that?
Well, it lets them share the reproductive burden more equally. Each fish gets a turn to lay eggs, and they take turns caring for the young.
Wow, that's amazing. It's like the ultimate partnership.
It really is.
So are there any other examples like this?
Oh, yeah. Tons. Remember those anemone fish from Finding Nemo?
Oh, yeah. Nemo and his dad, Marlin.
Well, if the female anemone fish died, Marlin would actually transition into a female.
You're kidding. He'd become the mom.
Exactly, and then potentially even mate with Nemo.
Whoa, that's a twist. But how do they even change sex like that?
It's pretty complex, but scientists are starting to figure it out. Dr. Justin Rhodes has been studying this.
So what's he finding?
Well, he found that the anemone fish's brain actually changes to female before the gonads do.
Really? So, their brain decides first?
It seems that way. Yeah, he even tracked one fish for almost 3 years that was acting like a female but still had male gonads.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's not just about their reproductive organ.
Right. It suggests that brain sex and gonadal sex aren't always the same.
So then what determines brain sex?
That's a great question, and researchers are still trying to figure that out. But Dr. David Cruz, he's an expert in this area. He says that there's a sort of bisexuality in the brains of all vertebrates.
Bisexuality, you mean the potential for both male and female characteristics?
Yeah, exactly. It's like we all have a little bit of both in our brains.
That's pretty mind-blowing. I guess it makes sense, though, when you see how fluid sex can be in other animals.
Exactly. It challenges our need to put everything in these neat little boxes.
So it's like nature saying, hey, there's not just one way to be male or female.
Right. There's a whole spectrum of possibilities.
This is all so fascinating. So we've got barnacles and these tiny fish and even Nemo changing sex. Are there any other examples of this kind of flexibility?
Oh, tons. Roughgarden talks about all sorts of creatures in her book, moles, hyenas, bearded dragons. It's a wild world out there.
It really is. It makes you realize how much we still have to learn about sex and gender.
Definitely the human view of male and female is just a human view. It's not the whole story.
So are there any other examples that really highlight how much our environment can influence sex?
Oh, yeah. There's this study on nematode worms. Those tiny little creatures that live everywhere.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Well, these worms can actually switch between male and female behaviors depending on their environment.
What? Seriously, so they're not even changing their bodies, just their behavior.
Right, it's like they're adapting their gender expression to fit the situation.
That is so cool. It's like they're saying, I'm going to do what I got to do to survive.
Exactly. It shows how adaptable life can be.
This whole deep dive has been amazing. It's clear that there's so much more to sex and gender than we usually think.
It really challenges our assumptions and expands our understanding of what's possible.
So where do we go from here? We've seen all this diversity from barnacles to fish to worms.
I think the key takeaway is that this diversity is important. It's not just a scientific curiosity. It has implications for how we understand ourselves as humans.
That's a big question. It feels like we've only scratched the surface here. It's like we're trying to fit square pegs into round holes, trying to make everything fit into these strict categories.
I know what you mean. It can be frustrating.
It really makes you wonder if we're missing out on a bigger picture.
I think we are. There's so much more to the story than just male and female.
Okay, so I'm remembering this other example from Evolution's Rainbow about bonobos, those really social apes.
Oh, yeah. Bonobos are fascinating.
They're like the make love, not war apes, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They use sex to build relationships and resolve conflicts.
And the females form these strong bonds with each other.
Yeah, it's really cool. The females have a lot of power in bonobo society.
It makes you wonder if humans could learn a thing or two from them.
Maybe we could. It definitely challenges our ideas about how society should be structured.
Another mind-blowing example was the female orcas.
Oh, yeah, they go through menopause, just like human females.
But they keep playing a vital role in their pods even after they can't reproduce anymore.
Exactly. They become leaders and mentors, sharing their knowledge and experience.
It's like nature is showing us that aging doesn't have to be a decline.
Right. It can be a time of continued growth and contribution.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We started with Darwin and his barnacles, then we explored sex-changing fish and worms, and even touched on the amazing social lives of bonobos and orcas.
It's been quite a journey through the diversity of sex and gender in the animal kingdom.
And it's clear that this diversity is more than just a scientific curiosity. It's a challenge to our own perspectives.
Absolutely. It forces us to question the categories and assumptions that we often take for granted.
If the natural world is so fluid and adaptable, why are we humans so obsessed with rigid definitions?
That's a great question, and I don't know if there's an easy answer, but I think it's important to keep asking it.
I agree. Maybe by embracing the diversity we see in nature, we can learn to be more open-minded and accepting of the diversity within our own species.
I think that's a beautiful thought and a powerful message to take away from this deep dive.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this exploration of the incredible world of sex and gender diversity.
It's been my pleasure. I hope it sparked some curiosity and inspired some new ways of thinking.
And remember, there's always more to learn and discover about the natural world, so keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep an open mind.
That's the key to understanding our place in this amazing and ever-evolving